Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic. Freshly revealed, we have the new Precons from Duskmourn, and today we're looking at Deathtoll, the black and green deck focusing on Delirium and card types. It's not uncommon to see a Golgari deck focus on the graveyard, but this one has a very distinct theme of getting lots of different card types into the yard. And the box legend for the deck is Winter, Cynical Opportunist. A new character to the set, Winter is a resident of Duskmourn itself, though he is desperate to flee the plane and its miseries. Winter is a 4-mana 2/5 human warlock with Death Touch. He reads, whenever Winter attacks, mill 3 cards. Delirium. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile any number of cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them. If you do, put a permanent card from among them onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So, you can see why the payoff is so huge here. Cheating out permanents that can happen very early is incredibly powerful, especially when those are massive creatures, or artifacts, or enchantments that can warp the game in your favor. Winter has the same self-enabling aspect as Sidisi Brood Tyrant in milling on attack, but you can cram the deck with so much mill, it makes Winter basically an enchantment that blocks really well. But since he triggers on your end step, well, if you do a little bit of prep work, you could have this triggering the turn he enters, which, of course, is really good. But Winter isn't the only new legend in the deck. We also have Rendmaw, Creaking Nest, and this is a badass 5-mana 5/5 Scarecrow with Menace and Reach, and I am already in love with this guy. I've got a thing for spooky Scarecrows. But apart from being an amazing attacker and blocker, Rendmaw says, when Rendmaw Creaking Nest enters, and whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types, each player creates a tapped 2/2 black bird creature token with flying. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. What is not to love here? It's a Crow Storm, making terrible attacking birds that can never attack you. This sows some real discord across the table, as everyone knows there will always be attacks. So you can also be certain you'll always have bodies if you need to sacrifice something, and there will always be creatures dying on the battlefield over and over. Additionally, Rendmaw triggers on enters and when you play a card with 2 or more card types, not cast. So artifact lands are a big premium here, giving everyone another bird. A deck around Rendmaw is going to want to focus on diversifying your permanent types and doubling up as much as possible. Enchantment and artifact creatures are a big plus. Let's take a look at which of these commanders are better to build around and what cards we want to cut or add to tune it into a cohesive direction. If you're looking to pick up the cards to build this deck yourself, check out my sponsor Card Trader. Card Trader is one of the world's largest global networks on buying or selling cards. They make it easy to find cards at the cheapest prices from all around the world, in languages you're looking for, and in the treatments that you're looking for. For 5% off your first order, use my promo code MECHANIC. Check out the link in the description for more. Now, between the two of these legends, I'm a much bigger fan of Rendmaw, if that wasn't clear. We've seen general mill and graveyard shenanigans before, and while Winter is strong, I think Rendmaw is more fun. I do love deck building restrictions, and this legend promotes us thinking about using cards we might not normally, but I want to play him mainly so that we can play with some new goodies that came in the deck. Brand new cards like Demolisher Spawn, a massive 7-mana 7/7 with trample and haste that smells a lot like a Craterhoof Behemoth. In fact, he says, whenever Demolisher Spawn attacks, if you have 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, other attacking creatures you control get +4/+4 until end of turn. So not only does he trigger Rendmaw being an enchantment creature, but he then buffs the birds that are attacking in play to make them massive 6/6 flyers. That's a great way to break a board stall, and in a deck where we're going wide and don't have to fear the birds crack back from opponents, it's an incredible game ender. Also following the trend of having 2 card types is Formless Genesis, a kindred sorcery that does, in fact, trigger Rendmaw too. This 3-mana kindred shapeshifter sorcery reads Changeling, so it has all creature types. Create an XX colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling and Death Touch, where X is the number of land cards in your graveyard. It also has Retrace, meaning we can recast it by paying 3 mana and discarding a land card. This is a spiritual successor to Worm Harvest, which instead costs 5 and went wide, making a 1/1 for each land in your graveyard. This version goes a lot taller, costs a lot less mana, and fits in a lot more decks being mono green. Hard to see this and not think that it's a must-have card. Also on the Kindred train, and triggering Rendmaw, is Demonic Covenant, a 6-mana Kindred enchantment. This one reads, whenever one or more demons you control attacks a player, you draw a card and lose a life. At the beginning of your end step, create a 5/5 black demon creature token with flying, then mill 2 cards. If 2 cards that share all their card types were milled this way, sacrifice Demonic Covenant. So this is, at a minimum, 6 mana for a 5/5 flyer. But for every turn that we don't mill 2 cards that share exactly their card types, meaning they must both be artifact creatures if an artifact creature was milled, then we get incremental card advantage and more demons. This is inevitability on a card. And unless you're getting really unlucky and immediately hitting 2 lands on a mill, just a single turn of this surviving gets you so much value from it. It's ideal as something you want to reanimate early with Winter, as it enables Delirium and gets you a massive advantage fast. Lastly, I want to spotlight Deluge of Doom. It doesn't trigger Rendmaw, but it is a great board wipe. For just 3 mana, this sorcery gives all creatures -X/-X, where X is the number of card types in your graveyard. Notably, this is a 3 mana board wipe similar to Toxic Deluge. It gets around indestructible and can be cast a lot sooner than other options. In a lot of formats, specifically more competitive formats, it's easy to have 3 to 4 card types in your yard very early, between some spells and lands, meaning this can be very efficient very fast. A lot less painful than Deluge, that's for sure. I like this one a lot, and it may become a go-to board wipe for me soon. Now, let's look at what we want to add to the deck to maximize the Crow Storm. And here's where I want to take inspiration from some similar commanders. First is Baba Lysaga, who wants us sacrificing cards of multiple permanent types. She's a great place to look for inspiration for cards with multiple types, like Springheart Nantuku, Perennial Behemoth, or Gloom Shrieker. All either artifacts or enchantments on top of being creatures, getting us both short-term and long-term value. These are great in combination to the creatures with multiple types already in the deck, like Haywire Might, Nyx Weaver, and Noxious Gearhulk. If we continue to refine our list to make sure our mana dorks are artifacts too, like Ornithopter of Paradise, Leaden Mirror, and Coppermere, then we can make sure that even late game we grind out an advantage with our commander. Each set of crows we make is a clock for our opponents. The new Valgavoth's Lair, an enchantment land, is right at home next to many artifact lands in the default list, like Darkmoss Bridge or Tree of Tales. Remember that Rendmaw says play and not cast, so lands absolutely count here. Now the other commander I want to take inspiration from is another one of my favorites, Grismold the Dreadsower. He also makes creatures for your opponents, which becomes an advantage to you. And thanks to him, we can include cards like Primal Vigor, a way to make everyone make twice as many crows to send at each other. This is a symmetrical effect we would normally avoid, but since we're the ones controlling a nasty horde of birdies, this makes it more vicious. It's called a murder of crows for a reason. With birds constantly swinging at each other, we could really do well putting Morbid Opportunist in the deck. Chances are, a bird getting chump blocked draws you a card on everyone else's turn, which is a great way to keep our hand full. These birds are goaded and must attack. Massacre Worm is right at home in the deck as well, as we can load everyone up on birds, then drop the worm for a massive burst of life loss as it shrinks the board. This is a perfect set 'em up, knock 'em down value synergy. Another value-adding creature to include is Bloodspore Thurnax. While this one doesn't trigger Rendmaw, it does ensure you can sacrifice a few birds to it on enters, so every other bird you make is massive. Creating big, evasive threats while everyone has little tapped 2/2s is a strong play. The new Bloomborough land, Fountainport, is a great add as well, letting us draw cards from our crows once they're no longer needed. Great utility on a land. And we can round out our upgrades with a few more kindred spells too, triggering Rendmaw while also providing great utility. Cards like Bitter Blossom, Lignify, or Tarmogoyf Nest all trigger Rendmaw when played and fill valuable slots in our list for creating more creatures or acting as removal. In order to make room for some of these pieces, let's cut some of the creatures and spells that don't trigger our commander. One thing about the existing list is that it really leans heavily into your lands carrying this multiple types burden. That can be a benefit to us as we have the ability to replay lands repeatedly but the creatures in the deck should be the most reliable source of Rendmaw triggers. This means axing the specific Delirium creatures in the list like Gnarlwood Dryad, Deathcap Cultivator, or Obsessive Skinner. They're all fine in a winter-led list, but here we want multiple types and they ain't it. Carrion Grub, Moldgraph Monstrosity, and even Titania Nature's Force can get cut too. They don't do anything for how the deck is pointing and care more about cards in or going to the graveyard than we do with Rendmaw leading the deck. Let's also cut Giant Ataphage and Hornet Queen too. These are in here just for the sake of being high mana cards and don't actually do anything for either strategy. We also don't particularly need 4 Planeswalkers in the deck. I understand that makes it easier to trigger Delirium, but Wrenn 7 and Grist the Hungertide are cool in the deck led by Winter, not so much in the deck led by Rendmaw. Some of the mill-centric spells can go as well, like Grapple with the Past, Grisly Salvage, and Mulch. Again, all great Delirium enablers, but we're moving away from that direction. I also think Inscription of Abundance is a bad card. Get out of here. We can finish our edits by cleaning up the non-basics that don't provide us with value or trigger Rendmaw, like Jungle Hollow, Evolving Wilds, and Temple of the False God. Now, if we wanted to add some real power to the deck, let's look at the upgrade. I think a really funny addition to the deck would be Coat of Arms. While it's expensive, dropping this while everyone has plenty of birds is enough to send people into a panic. One spell with multiple types is +4/+4 to all birds, knowing very well they can't attack you. Regular token doubling effects like Doubling Season and Parallel Lives would do very well in the deck too, ensuring you get twice as many birds as everyone else and put twice the pressure on. The best possible card draw for the deck would be the Ridiculous Species Specialist. Naming Bird with the Specialist out would ensure that you can draw likely multiple cards every turn, and turn a board wipe into drawing half our deck. Meathook Massacre would also make an incredible addition too. We're loading everyone up with birds that will crash into each other over and over. So wiping the board and draining your opponents at the same time is a massive play that can net huge swings in life totals. Skull Clamp would also help solve all of our card draw concerns too, being able to slap it on a bird every turn and send it to its doom. But I struggle to find a deck where Skull Clamp isn't a massive card draw engine. Then lastly, I'd look for a way to fit Dryad of the Elysian Grove and Courser of Kruphix into the deck too. Not only are they enchantment creatures, triggering Rendmaw, but also lets us interact with lands which themselves trigger Rendmaw. That's exactly what we want to be doing and is a perfect overlap in synergies. Overall, I think the default list is great, and a pivot like this makes it very unique to play with some interesting interactions. With some streamlining, this can stand alone with decks built from scratch. But let me know in the comments, are you more excited to play Winter or Rendmaw, and which one are you planning on putting in the lead of the deck? You can find my full list with upgrades in the description at my sponsor, MOXFIELD. MOXFIELD is the best deck building platform in the world and makes it easy to check the changes made to this list with their history function. Check out my cuts and ads all in one place, and while you're there, be sure to follow my profile to never miss a brew. And be sure to check out Card Conduit. If you're looking to sell your cards, ship them unsorted to Card Conduit, where they'll assess your cards and get you the best prices. They keep a cut of the sales and send you the rest. Easy. Don't mess with multiple buy lists again, or person-to-person sales for a single card at a time. Sell it all with Card Conduit today. And while you're here, be sure to check out these other videos on the channel. If you were inspired to brew today, you have to hit that subscribe button. And as always, folks, good luck and have fun.